In this video, we're going to focus on a key area of divorce advice for men, coping with the effects of divorce on children. And I'm going to give you a simple, effective strategy to really minimize the impact, the negative effects that the divorce has on your children. I'm Rachael Sloan. I'm a divorce coach for men. I'm also a master NLP practitioner, a certified life coach, and the creator of Better Beyond Divorce, which is my unique approach to divorce recovery that's geared specifically to the needs of men. I help my clients move past the feelings of shock, betrayal, anger, and depression that they often experience during the divorce and in the aftermath of it. I help them get to a place of confidence, calm, and clarity moving forward. And in these videos, I really hope to help you do the same. Today, we're going to talk about divorce with kids, specifically about coping with the effects divorce has on children. I'm going to give you two key pieces of advice that are going to help you minimize the impacts and negative effects that your divorce has on your kids. The first is a necessary mindset shift that, frankly, all parents of divorce need to know. And the second is a simple, effective strategy for supporting your children directly. What we are not going to talk about much today is what the psychological effects of divorce on children actually are. If you're interested in that topic, I just made an entire video about it. You can view that by clicking on that link up there above my head. Instead, today we're going to focus on coping with and minimizing the effects of divorce on children and how you specifically can do that. And make sure you hang around till the end of the video, because I'm also going to share a breakdown of the emotional stages that men go through during and after divorce. And I'm going to show you how understanding where you're at in each stage can really impact your parenting so that you can maximize the impact you have on your kids, regardless of where you're at in that process yourself. As always, guys, please leave your comments. I try to respond to every comment I get. And I also know for a fact, because of the comments and emails I get from you guys, that hearing other people's stories is making a difference. So please share your experience, share your questions, share your observations. It means a lot to me and it means a lot to other people watching these videos. Okay, so let's look at the two pieces of advice you need to minimize the negative impacts of divorce on your kids. First is a mindset shift. Second is an effective, simple strategy for working directly with your own children. We're going to start with the mindset. The mindset shift, the wake-up call that you really need to hear if you're going through a divorce is that not healing yourself is hurting your children. Staying in a place where you feel helpless, hopeless, depressed, angry, resentful, unempowered, all of that is hurting your kids. All of that is selfish. I know you don't want to hear that, and I know it doesn't feel that way, and I know it feels like so much is out of your control, and it is. So much of this process has been so unfair. There are so many things you didn't choose, that you didn't get to choose. There are so much control has just been taken away from you, and I know that can leave you in a place where you feel really helpless, really frustrated, really sad, really broken and beaten down. Everything's out of your control. And then the pieces that are in your control or that were in your control in the past, you probably are looking back on those and recognizing that you royally messed them up to a certain degree. And maybe you're really beating yourself up and you've got some shame and guilt in there too. I get it. It's not easy. It's not like you can just flip a switch and you feel better and you're now like in control and empowered and happy and good. It takes work. It's not easy. It takes time and energy and intention. But you need to do it, because not doing it is harming your children. And you're going to see exactly how when we get to this strategy. When you focus on the things you can't control, you give up control of the things that you could be controlling. If you are struggling with this, and if you're one of those people who feels like self-confidence, self-compassion, self-love work feels selfish, I want you to do one quick exercise for me. For the next month, every single day, I want you just to track how much time you think you spent in that day thinking negative thoughts, either about yourself, your situation, your ex, or the past. Just write one number down every evening for a month. And at the end of that month, I want you to add up that time. And then you tell me, what is more selfish? Staying focused on the things you cannot change and cannot control, and on the mistakes you made and the mistakes others made, or doing that work to accept what is, love yourself as you are, and move forward. All right, so what's the strategy for actually supporting your kids? You're going to see why that mindset shift is so important. There is a simple approach to supporting your kids, and frankly, it is all they need for you to minimize the negative effects that divorce has on your children. The whole strategy boils down to one simple acronym: CARE. Consistently accessible, responsive, and emotionally engaged. What does that mean? Well, we'll break it down into each one, right? Consistent. Relationships are built on trust, and trust is built on consistent interaction. If your children are going to trust you enough to open up, to share their feelings, they need to trust you, which means you need to show up consistently for them. Why does it matter if they share their feelings? Them sharing their feelings, being able to process their emotions with you through a trusting connection with you, that is what is going to save them from all of those negative effects that divorce has on children. Remember those statistics if you watched my last video? We talk a lot about the scary statistics out there about the impact that divorce has on kids' mental health, behavioral well-being, future ability to have successful relationships. All of that boils down to unprocessed, unheard, unvalidated emotional experiences that that child has during divorce. If you want to help your kids not suffer all of those negative impacts, you've got to help them process their emotions, and you've got to help them feel what it feels like to be in a secure, healthy relationship. That's you, right? You're that secure attachment figure for them. To be that, you have to show up consistently and build that trust so that they're willing to open up and share with you and that they actually can have that experience. That's why consistency is so important. All right, care, consistency. The next one is to be accessible. And it's just what it sounds like. Are you available to your children? I don't just mean, are you present physically? I mean, are you available? Are you available to them even when you're dealing with your own difficult emotions, with your own insecurity, self-doubt, or frustration? When your emotions get heightened and your brain starts spinning, you disconnect. You disconnect from yourself and from your family. So this question of accessibility is really a question of, can you stop the spinning and reconnect to this present moment and to this child in front of you? That takes us to the R. The R is responsive. And again, this sounds easy, you guys, but there's a lot involved. This is actually harder than being accessible. When you're available to your child and they come to you, are you able to respond to them where they're at? And the reason this can be hard is because sometimes what your kid brings to you during a divorce is really triggering for you. When your child asks you, Daddy, why does mommy hate you so much? Or even worse, when the child comes home and says, oh, hey, Daddy, mommy's friend made us pizza last night and then he had a sleepover with mommy. Right? When your kid brings these kinds of things up to you, are you able to respond to the child, to the kid, to what they need with compassion and with empathy? Or are you so triggered by the situation, by the fact that your ex is having a guy staying over, by the fact that your 5-year-old child has noticed that mommy hates daddy, right? If you're so triggered, if you don't have the tools, the skills, and the practice of managing your own emotional experience, separating from those triggers, stopping the mental spinning, it's going to be really hard for you to be responsive in a way that's meaningful for your child. And so when I talk about in a way that's meaningful for your child, that takes us to the E of care, being emotionally engaged. Being emotionally engaged is about empathy, compassion, and curiosity. It means being connected to that child and responding to them where they're at emotionally. Are they angry? Okay, let's address that anger. Don't brush it off. Don't tell them not to be angry. Don't tell them not to cry or to get over it, right? You know that that doesn't work. People have been telling you that, I'm sure, during this divorce. It does not work. What you need to do as an emotionally engaged parent is help your child process their emotions in a healthy way. You need to hear and validate what they're feeling. You need to help them explore that emotion, how they're experiencing it, what it's doing in their body, what it needs. You have to help them reconnect to themselves as a person, as a conscious human being outside of that emotion, so that over time your child can learn to manage and regulate their emotions by separating out the physical sensations, the emotional experience they're having from their sense of identity and who they are. That's a lot of work. And that's what takes emotional engagement. But again, if you don't have the skills, if you haven't processed and managed your own grief, your own anger, your own helplessness, it's going to be really hard to show up and be emotionally engaged with your child. So this is a strategy: care, consistently accessible, responsive, and emotionally engaged. really, that is all that your children need. That can have a huge impact on the effects of divorce on children if you consistently do these things. Right? It's simple, but it's not easy, right? Because clearly to do this, you need to have already done and continue to be doing a lot of work on yourself, your own healing, your own divorce recovery work. So I've put together this emotional stages of divorce guide for men to help you recognize where you're at in your own emotional journey and what specifically you need to be doing at that stage to keep healing and moving forward. So I'm going to share that with you in just a moment. But I just want to be really clear on this, you guys. This is all your kids need. If you can consistently show up, if you can stick to that CARE acronym, you are going to make a massive difference for your children. You're going to help them have a felt sense of what it is to be in a secure and healthy relationship with you. And all the child needs is one example of that. My gosh, especially if it's with a parent, one experience of that, you are setting them up for so much future success that frankly, you probably weren't set up for yourself. All of the clients I work with, men and women, ultimately, all of this, all of their relationship troubles, everything that leads up to divorce, it all boils down to habits, relationship habits that they learned or didn't learn in childhood. Right? They boil down, we can talk about attachment styles and attachment science. It all boils down to not having learned how to have healthy relationships at an early age. If you show up consistently, accessible, responsive, emotionally engaged for your children, you are giving them a model that they can fall back on for every relationship for the rest of their life. This is a big deal. Okay, so I'm going to help you with this because I also know it's kind of overwhelming. How do I do this work, right? I feel horrible. I feel helpless. I feel hopeless. I feel angry. How can I show up for my kids in this way when I can't do it for myself yet? So this guide that you can download using the link above or from the link down in the video description, it is a guide to the 9 stages, the emotional stages that men go through after divorce. And women go through similar stages, and you'll also notice there's a lot of similarity to the 7 stages of grief. However, what I've found working with my clients is that there are some differences in how men process and go through these stages after divorce. In part, that's because of societal messaging and societal conditioning. And it's also from the circumstances that typically lead to divorce for men, because usually the man doesn't file. Right. And often he doesn't want the divorce at all and he fights it. So there's a lot more emotions of resentment, of shame, of betrayal that come up. So this emotional guide accounts for all of that, and it helps you identify where you're at and what you need to do at each stage to keep yourself healing and moving forward, and so that you can really be there for your children. So I'm going to share my screen with you real quick and just show you what it looks like. All right, so this is the guide. You can see the 9 emotional stages of divorce for men here. So then with each stage, I give you some cues, some tips to help you figure out if you're even in that stage. And then if you are, I tell you what to do. In every stage, there's important steps, important things that you can be doing to continue healing, continue growing, continue moving forward towards that ultimate goal of acceptance and hope. If you use this guide and if you do the work for whatever stage you're in, and you guys, you're going to go back and forth. You're not just going to stay in a linear journey, one stage to the next. Things are going to happen. Life is going to happen. You're going to move through these stages in varying ways and revisit some of them at times. But if you use this guide, if you do the steps at every stage, you're going to keep healing, keep moving forward, and importantly, be able to continue to be there in a meaningful way for your kids. Don't fall into the mindset trap of thinking that working on yourself or investing yourself is selfish, because your kids need you and they need you to be accessible, responsive, and emotionally engaged. So whatever it takes, whatever you have to do to get there, do it for them, because you have an immense power to intervene right now. A single secure attachment figure can make such a difference in the outcomes for a child. Maybe you look back on your own childhood and notice that you didn't have a great secure attachment figure, right? Maybe you didn't have a parent who was consistently accessible, responsive, and emotionally engaged. Childhood emotional wounds do not have to come from trauma, abuse, or neglect. Even loving, well-intentioned parents can fail to be fully accessible, responsive, and emotionally engaged. Frankly, our society doesn't set us up very well to do that. And most of us haven't learned the skills for managing our own emotional experience in order to be able to really be there for somebody else's. But it's worth doing this work, and it can make all of the difference for your kids. So go ahead and download your free guide. You can get it right here and start working through these emotional stages with intention so that you can show up for your kids the same way.